Welcome to Business Talk, presented in collaboration with the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, from the heart of southeastern Ohio at the University of Rio Grande TV studio. Our goals are simple: promote the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, as well as advocate local small business and their support organizations. More importantly, promote southeastern Ohio as a wonderful place to live, explore, and learn. There are many different ways you can find us. The University of Rio Grande Cable Access Channel 17, live online at blogtalkradio.com, and on YouTube if you are unable to catch our show live. Introducing our co-hosts, Jason Winters, Mike Thompson, Patrick Dengel. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey, welcome to our show. This is a special for me. Jason and Mike, we have two distinguished individuals that protect us, protect Gallia County, protect individuals that have had or have potential emergencies. And it's a great pleasure to have them on our show. We're going to be featuring Bob Hood. Bob is the communications operations communicator, or the dispatcher. And we also have Sherry Daines, who's the director of the 911 call center. I want to welcome you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Pat, have you ever had a need to call 911?
As a matter of fact, I did. And it had to do with a car wreck that was right out in front of my house. I had my phone, and so I called 911. They were very courteous, and it was very interesting. The individual was a little inebriated, and the police had to chase him down.
You're talking about the individual in your yard, not the individual on the phone, right?
That's right.
Okay, that's just clarify.
But it was interesting. I called 911, and within 2 minutes there was someone that had responded, and everything was very courteous. So I had a really unique experience with the 911. Now, that was in Portsmouth, and I understand that we have in Gallia County a great service too.
We do. I've actually called the number several times. I live on a very lucky road as well. I've had people in the field, wrecked vehicles in the field, electric lines down. I've called multiple times, yes.
And they're very courteous, and I think it's a great service, and I'm interested in finding out more. Mike, have you ever used 911?
Yeah, here and there. Accidents that other people have had, overturned cars. Nothing health related. Thankfully in our house.
I was actually reading in a book. It's interesting you brought that question up, because I actually read in a book one time that 9 out of 10 people will at some point in their life call 911.
Now that brings up the question, what are they calling for?
Well, that's what we want to talk about today.
What should you call 911? Sometimes when I call, should I be calling 911 for this, or should I just be calling the sheriff's department? What's a good answer to that question? What degree of
They have a good answer for that.
what degree of emergency do I call the sheriff's department, or do I call 911?
If you have an immediate situation that calls for police, fire, or ambulance that requires the necessary situation for us to protect life or property, you should call us. If it is necessary for you feel it is necessary for us to protect life or property, call us.
And if you're not sure, call anyway. We would rather you call us and it not be an emergency than for you to have something going on that you really needed someone for and you hesitated.
Very good. Tell us about ourselves. Tell us about yourselves, not ourselves. We know who we are.
We could talk about you all day, Pat.
Whether I'm here or not.
Now, Bob, you've been on the show before.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead, Sherry.
My name is Sherry Daines, and I'm the director for the Gallia County 911 Center. I've been in this communication business for almost 29 years, And I started
So
out.
you started out when you were about 4 years old, right?
Oh, that's very kind. I started in 1985 as a dispatcher for the city police department, and it has just been something that I dearly loved. I think you have to have a passion for this type of work. You have to have a passion to help people, and it just has blossomed from the early years.
And my understanding is that you have a local or an area farm here.
Yes.
You're raising your family.
Yes, I'm married, and I've been married for 28 years and live on a farm here in Gallia County. I've lived in Gallia County all my life, and I have a daughter who just graduated from the University of Rio Grande in May and is a teacher here in the county.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic.
And fellow goat producers.
Yes,
yes, yes.
So you've been very actively involved in the 4-H.
Yes, yes. 4-H is a very good program, and I highly recommend that to our youth because it teaches them responsibility. One of the things my daughter always said she learned from 4-H was interview skills, and that helped her tremendously when she was applying for scholarships, applying for jobs. So it's a good program.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
And I'm Bob Hood, and I've been with the 911 Center now for just a little over a year. I started part-time back in January, went full-time in March, and have enjoyed my role there as a midnight dispatcher. The thing about being a dispatcher is we not only rotate between law enforcement, EMS, and fire, but we also can also work different shifts. We work 8-hour shifts. So my primary shift is on midnights. I work 5 straight midnights, but that doesn't mean that I can't come in and work a 4 to 12 or a 8 to 4 if covering for someone else, or sometimes I'll maybe have to work a double shift so when we're low on staff. So
So you get all the calls for the werewolves and the vampires and stuff that come out. In the night.
911, it's kind of an oddity that you would be so busy during midnight, but there are nights when we are really busy depending upon the situations that are going on at the same time. If we have a large fire, or we have a wreck, or we have a situation going on that demands us all, we are very busy. And then there are nights when it's not as busy as other nights. But the other night we had a situation that took all of us several hours to work through, and we all were working very, very hard. So you would think 911 at midnight, you would think, well, who is going to call 911 at midnight? But it would surprise you, especially now the hours between 3 to 5, those are a little bit they are the werewolf hours. But when people start getting out, especially now school's going on, bus drivers are getting on the road, and there's a lot of traffic that starts to go on around 5 o'clock. People are getting out and exploring the highways and going different places to and from work or to and from their job. So it is busy.
And we were talking earlier about phases of the moon, if that has an impact.
It does. It does. It rapidly raises our call volume, and it doesn't. Excuse me. It doesn't take long for us to look at each other and say, is it a full moon? Yes. So it does.
I can echo that from the funeral industry. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing.
Now,
Phases of the
statistics.
moon changes people's attitudes and how they act and
Yeah.
they die.
And this
Yeah.
happens on every shift. It's not just the midnight shift. You can see it starting sometimes on the day shift, the call volume increases. And then
That is amazing.
on up to evening shift.
And I'm sure the weather has played a part in that lately too.
Yes, we've been really busy handling snow emergencies and road conditions and school closings and situations with buses being on the road, wanting to get into different roads. And just yesterday, the county school bus frequency was tied up for 2 hours nonstop as buses were looking for different routes and different roads that were not snow covered or had ice as an impact. So
We also monitor their frequencies for the school buses, for the city and the county schools, so that if they have an accident, they can call directly into 911 and get help that way.
Now, 911 is, I'm getting older, so I remember when it started. How long has it been in Gallia County?
In Gallia County, it has been here since 1997. We had our opening September 18th. Well, actually, I'm sorry, it was September 1st of 1997. And we try to keep 3 dispatchers around the shift 24/7. So we dispatch for all of the law enforcement, Sheriff's Office, Gallipolis Police Department, the Village of Rio Grande, our volunteer fire departments, EMS. So we do everything there, start to finish. When you call 911, we answer it, we handle the call, we close it out when it's done. We don't transfer anything out unless it goes to a different agency, such as the Highway Patrol, or if we get a cell call from Mason County or an adjoining county, then we transfer those. And we also answer all of their 7-digit lines. So in addition to the 911 lines, we have all of the 7-digit lines. So if you call the Sheriff's Department, you're getting a 911 dispatcher.
So it doesn't matter at sometimes.
Actually, yesterday I got promoted to detective because they didn't know who they were talking to. But that is something that you mentioned when it was interesting. You mentioned that when you started the conversation.
Yeah.
If I call the Sheriff's Department or I call 911, well, you're actually talking to both.
So is that after hours, or is that all the time?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
24/7.
So it's interchangeable. Just dial
So I don't need to
911
grab my
or theirs.
book
It doesn't
and
matter.
Look through and find that sheriff's number.
Well, we have 4 911 lines that come in on our trunk lines. And if those get busy, it will roll over to one of the 7-digit lines. But we try to educate people on emergency calls and non-emergency calls so that they don't just pick up the phone and dial 911.
You mean I can't find out the lottery numbers?
No.
I mean, that's an emergency.
I mean,
It is for some
I gotta
people.
know.
Especially if you won, it might be an emergency.
That is
Especially
true.
now that it's, what, 400 million? And the
I
Powerball
don't
now
know. I
400
don't
million,
play
something
the
like that.
lottery, but
But people have been familiar with, in Gallia County, they are familiar with the sheriff line and the city police line. And so we do get a multitude of calls that come in on those lines.
Yes, we do.
And something that you recently was able to put in, it seems to me I was reading somewhere in 2013, you added mark systems, or have you always had that?
We've not always had the mark system. That's something that we've put into place within, it was probably around 2010 that we really started getting into the mark system more. And
is that the
allows-
digital system or?
Yes.
Okay.
That allows us to have interoperability with other agencies. If I'm in Columbus and have a Marks radio with me, I can talk to our dispatch office down here. So
So it allows
works
you to
good.
go to different counties
Yes.
statewide. Does it allow you to cross states into West Virginia or
it loses signal there.
signal?
Right. But we do have a program set up with Mason County because we mutual aid with them so much with their EMA and their 911 center. But the mark system is pretty good. It reaches a lot of areas that we had trouble with before. And there's still a few areas that, you have dead spots in the county no matter where you go because of the terrain. So, but it does help a lot. All of our law enforcement in the county is on that now.
So this is such a vital part of our safety and security here in Gallia County. How is it funded?
We are funded by a 0.25% sales tax. And by the way, it is up for renewal in November of this year. And it is a continuation of what we have. It is not an increase. But that is our funding. We don't get anything from the general fund from the county commissioners.
So this isn't a federal product or
No.
project or there's grants available?
No.
Do they have problems getting that passed, or is that usually an easy one?
In the past, we have not had trouble getting it passed. People have been very receptive to it. And that's one of the things we try to educate people on is the importance of 911, that it is a vital link in our community to get help to them when they need help. It is a vital link for our law enforcement and our fire service and EMS. So,
So what would happen? What would happen if it didn't pass?
I'm going to guess that
Well-
if it didn't pass, you're going to spend more money on the exact same service. I mean, after all, you're dispatching for multiple agencies, so if everyone had to do their own dispatching,
It would
wouldn't it
cost
cost
a lot.
more in the long run?
It would. I'm not really sure what would happen if we
Yeah.
didn't get it passed. I would hate to give you an answer and it not be the correct answer for that. But, I just sincerely hope that people get out and vote for this because it is vital. It is very important.
Years before 911 took place, you mentioned you were originally dispatching for the police department. Did every agency have their own dispatching
They
system?
did.
So you had fire dispatch, you had police dispatch, you had EMS dispatch.
EMS dispatched for all of the fire departments with the exception of the Gal Police Fire Department. The city police department dispatched for them. And then the sheriff's office had his dispatchers, and of course the city had theirs. So it was a big savings to those departments when 911 came along and took over that dispatching. It took some getting used to because everyone was used to their own people and their way of doing things, but we absorbed the dispatchers that wanted to come work for 911 so that they didn't lose positions. So it's
So if I'm driving down the road through Gallia County, and I happen to hit one of the millions of deer that populate the roads, etc., should I call 911?
yes, you can call
I
911.
mean, if it's just a fender bender or anything
You can
like that?
call 911, and we have a direct link that we can connect with the Highway Patrol. A lot of those type calls go to the Highway Patrol. And if there are injuries, we will ask, are there any injuries? And we'll go ahead and start a squad that way. But if there are no injuries, we'll transfer you to the Highway Patrol, and they'll take care of your report.
And they're not going to dispatch a veterinarian.
Twice that I've had, actually it was 3 times, I've had the fortune of hitting deer. All 3 of them did not live. But 2 of them were shot by the Highway Patrol. I don't want them.
Well, if you had a truck, you could just.
Well, as a matter of fact, the tow truck driver, he said, "What are you going to do with this deer after the deer was put down? It was injured terribly." And I looked at our family and we said, "We don't want it." And so he was a recipient of a nice deer.
Dinner.
Yeah, dinner.
Yeah, I was with somebody who hit one. The cop had to shoot it, and one of the students came out, from Rio Grande because it was just down here by the farm, and dressed it right there. Kind of interesting. It's a weird night.
So when someone calls, let's talk a little bit about procedures.
Okay.
We always see on the outside. What's it like when someone calls in there? Are there any situations where all of a sudden it's very nerve-wracking? And
Yes, it is, especially, someone will say, I bet you have a stressful job. And it is stressful at times. There are other times you go 8 hours and you don't get a stressful call. But you never know who and what kind of a situation is on the other end of that line. When you pick that line up, you never know if you're going to hear someone screaming or you're going to hear someone very calm and give you some news that then you have to jump into action. On the other end of the line, people's actions and emotions are different, as you well know. And to some people, a cut finger, they'll be screaming. To some person who may have been deceased, they'll be just calm and as calm. So you really have to decipher through once that call comes in. You have to listen very clearly, and you have to decipher, okay, who do I need? What agency do I need? How serious is this? And our job is to get them en route just as soon as possible. If it's a medical emergency, we want to dispatch that squad just as soon as we can. And I always tell them, hang with me, I'm going to dispatch that squad, and then I'm going to get some more information. I'll get some more general directions. Where do you live? And as Sherry taught us in our class, it's all about location, location, location. And you have to get more precise, but when someone is calling you saying, I need a squad right now, You want to
And
get
right
that
now is
squad,
never fast enough.
you want to get that squad on the way, and then you go back and say, okay, give me your location, give me some general vicinity of things that I can tell the squad what color's your house and so forth and so on.
So if I needed a squad, I would call you. You would say, "Hold on a minute." You would literally call the squad.
We dispatch them. We
Okay.
don't call them by telephone. We punch an automated number or an
okay.
automated button that automatically sets their pagers and tones off. And then we speak to them over a microphone, and we tell them that they're going to such and such address, and then we give them a description of what the problem is.
And you haven't hung up on the caller yet.
No.
You keep them on the line as long as you need to.
I keep them on the line until I have obtained all the information that I feel is necessary. And sometimes, if it's a law enforcement situation, as we were talking about at lunch, we'll hold them a little bit longer. If we feel that maybe they're in danger, or we feel that we need to hold them on the line, we'll say, please stick with me until the law enforcement arrives.
Now, being long-standing members of the community, you probably talk to people that you know and know the people, and it's like, oh, hey, Bob, how's it going?
Well, I try not to carry on a casual conversation, although I might know them, but I might say that later once we get calmed down, and if we're waiting on a police officer to get there, I might be in a casual conversation. But it's usually, if I know them and they know me, we'll always be right to the point, and I try to cut out the casual conversation
Right.
until
Well, I didn't mean casual conversation, but knowing them, it's like, okay, maybe that might put them at ease, so like knowing that you're on the other end.
And I did have that happen 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had a situation that I did not know them, but they knew my wife.
Mhm.
And as you all know, my wife teaches in the Gallia County local school systems. And that very day, she went to school and told my wife that she had talked to me and on the phone during the midnight hour. And so it really, we do know so many people. But that's also a very helpful situation, because we might know another relative and we might be able to get help very quickly. We did have a situation where we did have a hang-up call, as you were talking about a hang-up call. We had a situation where we have a hang-up call, and if you happen to know that person, then you can maybe get back on the line with them, or you can get a family member quicker.
Hang-up call. Why?
I've done
They
that
disconnected. They're disconnected for whatever reason.
Oh, okay.
And
Or
when,
somebody calls 911 and just hangs up.
and when that happens, if you do know them, then you can get a family member, or you can get help pretty. So it does pay to
Right, because the person may have passed out,
right.
and you don't know what's going on
Or
the
there
other
may be
end.
someone else in the room.
Right.
That's
I
right.
mean, it could be a
They
dangerous.
take the phone
That
away from
has
you.
happened. That is correct. That has happened.
But yeah, I did it once by accident. I was making the video for 911, and so I was just taking a shot of my hand going, press 911, bink, 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 and it's like, hang up. And then y'all called me back, said, what'd you need? It's like, nothing, just doing the video.
That is our procedure, that if we get a hang-up call, we call you back. And when we go out to the schools and try to educate the kids, that's one thing we tell them, don't play with the phone. Now, if you think you have an emergency, it's fine to call, but don't just play with the phone, dial 911 and hang up.
Right.
Because we will send someone out if we don't get an answer when we call back. We send a law enforcement officer to check on them and make sure everything's okay, because like you said, sometimes you do get calls where they can't talk and they have to hang up.
And back in Sherry's older days of dispatching,
Before the turn of the
before
century.
well, you do remember though when
Before
portable
I was
phones.
10.
You remember when portable phones first became and memory dial. Remember?
Right.
So at Christmas, when everybody would get memory dial phones all day long on Christmas, they would answer the phone because they were putting those numbers in,
Programming.
Speed dial.
pushing one to make sure that they worked. And but I can remember going up one day on Christmas, and the phone was just ringing off the hook. People had got phones for Christmas, and they just wanted to make sure they worked. So
One thing we want people to remember is that when you call 911 and they're asking questions, they're not just trying to waste time. They have to ask questions so that they can give the responders the information that they need.
Sure.
And just because they're asking questions doesn't mean they're not doing things behind the scenes. Like Bob was talking
Yeah.
about.
But
going
I
ahead
need
and
help
paging
now.
out.
I need it right now.
And we do hear that.
Mhm.
You know, and to them, 5 minutes is an hour.
Yeah.
When you're in a crisis, 5
Somebody's on the
minutes seems
floor
like an hour.
choking.
Right.
It.
And we
next second.
understand that. So we try to be patient with them and take care of them and just.
Well, as a famous governor said, sometimes people put on stupid hats. And sometimes what they may think as an emergency,
Yes.
common sense, or may not be. So what do you do in cases like, we were sort of looking at some of
What's the
things.
movie times?
Yeah, what's the movie times? Or my TV is out, can you help? What sort of a general rule of thumb that when
We
it
try
comes
to educate these people that that's not an emergency, that's not something you call 911 for, that,
Emergencies happen, Bob. It's all right.
It's appropriate.
What did you say about turning off your cell phone, Pat?
We turned our cell phone off, but your pager's okay.
sometimes people will call, especially elderly people, they'll want a phone number or they'll need some, and we try to go ahead and help them because of their situations. They may have a problem and can't see very well. The numbers in the phone book are very small. So we try to go ahead and help them and be patient with them. And, we just get a lot of different things like that.
And we have more of that time. We have more time to do that during the midnight hours. We will try, and it's different when I come in and dispatch in the day. It just overwhelms you, the call volume that the daytime and the 4 to 12 evening shift people have compared to the midnight, relatively speaking. But on the midnight, because the call volume is a little bit lesser, we have that time to help them maybe find out, okay, well, who can I call, or can you look up a number, and I can put them on hold, and I have time to get the phone book and look it up and tell them, this is the number you need to call, or whatever. We have a little bit more time and a little bit more freedom to do that at midnight when the phones aren't quite so busy. But another thing we want, before we get off the air, we want to stress that if you would like to see the 911 center, please feel free to contact Sherry, or even contact myself, or contact one of the other dispatchers that you might know, or Keith Wilson.
Well, as a matter of fact, you have a great website too, GalliaNet, GalliaNet.net,
Yes.
right? But go ahead.
But come out and see it, and we'll walk you through, and we'll be glad to give you a tour and show you firsthand how it operates, and you can actually see the dispatchers firsthand, how they, answering calls, and you can see what all we have there. It's a very large operation, and you would be impressed if you didn't know anything about Gallia County 911.
It is a secure area, so you can't just
Yes.
walk in.
Right.
Right.
You
Right.
have to press a button.
You have
they-
to be let in by the dispatchers.
Right.
So, but we do encourage people to come visit. We'll schedule a tour. If you have a civic organization that you'd like to have a tour or a meeting at and do a tour, we're happy to do that.
So it really sounds like you are a must-needed service
Very
for
much.
everyone in Gallia County.
Yes.
And that when the levy comes in, it's something to really consider. This doesn't help just one group of people, it helps everyone.
It does. It helps everyone in this community. It is a continuation of what we get right now. It's 0.25%. There's no increase on this. And we really appreciate all of the support that we've received from the community in the past. People stop out and bring the dispatchers things during the holidays. We get a lot of support from our community.
You solicited
and
them.
we're we're very
Tell by
happy.
looking.
We're very happy to give back to our community too.
Well, it really sounds like a great service. I know from my personal experience, it is a must-needed
Yes.
service, and I'm glad Gallia County has it.
Sherry, we've got under a minute. Is there anything else you would like to mention in that short time?
I would just like to remind people again that it is a very much needed service and that we are there for you. No matter what, we'll help you figure out a solution to it. Even if you call a 911 line and it's not an emergency, we may ask you to call a 7-digit line so that we can assist you. But we are there for the community, plain and simple. We're there for the community, and we appreciate all of that support.
Well, Sherry, Bob, we thank you for joining us today.
Thank
on
you.
Business
Thank
Talk.
you.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Jason.
All right, Mike?
I'm Bob.
I'm Sherry.
Thank you for listening. Have a great week.